Hi there, it's midwinter and it's pretty darn chilly. So we thought we would revisit some of our Greenland garden tours, point out some of the cool things that were happening in these gardens, and maybe chat about a few things that we might have missed. So let's enjoy, shall we? Let me tell you a little bit about Bob Statnick. I met Bob well over 20 years ago when I worked for him in the perennial department at Holes. And now I'm fortunate enough to work beside him again in our annual apartment at Greenland. And he is just a master gardener and so totally inspiring. And this yard is such a collection of beautiful things and rare trees and shrubs and alpines that you think wouldn't be possible to grow here in Alberta, but they just thrive in his yard. So we can't possibly capture every detail and all of the things that he's done to create this beautiful, beautiful storyboard of plants. But try and take it all in as you're watching this video because it's truly incredible. So you will see in this yard, Bob has quite the collection of evergreens. And evergreens are a true staple, especially here, because they're going to provide greenery throughout our winter months. And his collection of hemlocks and larch are things that you may have never seen before. Also, another thing about this yard, which we don't really get to mention, is Bob has an incredible talent for creating annual pots, and he does have pots working throughout his landscape. And in the one by his doorstep, it's a Topiary eugenia, which is really quite an incredible plant. But as we walk through this tour, keep an eye out for some of the pots and how he places them throughout the landscape, because there's some really incredible combinations happening.
We've got back here, as you can see, when I first developed the yard, I decided to do a quick rock garden. I've always been a collector of alpine plants, and we've got a lot of real choice material back in here. Some of this stuff has been here for now about 15 years.
Another really great design feature of this yard, I think, is a lot of people put their trees and their bushes and their shrubs to the side, whereas Bob brings them in to create these little rooms and special areas within the circle of the yard. And so then when you're walking through these spaces, you really are taking on a journey. And I think that's something just really special and something I think we should see more of.
Right over here, I have got another plant. This is also very rare. And I think this is a plant that should actually be a lot more in the trade. And it's called a Durka Dicipians, or a leatherwood. This thing, you never have to trim it. It has a nice round shape at all times. And it's also very hardy. There has never been a single speck of dieback on it. And it has been here as well for 17 years. So it's one of those plants that if you can ever get your hands on it, get it, because it's basically idiot-proof. You can't kill this thing. It does extremely well.
Okay, so Durka Dicipians. So Bob has this vocabulary. He and Joe know all the Latin words, and I'm pretty proud of myself for pronouncing that. I want this plant, and Bob says we should have it in all of our yards, so I feel like it's probably some pretty sound advice. It's beautiful. Look at that green leaf and the roundness and just that beautiful rounded shape of the shrub. Beautiful. Do it. And one more thing while we're admiring this shrub and admiring the yard, take a look at all of the different vines he has and flowering vines. So it is true he has a menagerie of color happening spring, summer, fall, due to bulbs and all the different perennials. He's really timed them out so beautifully. So in the back of this shot, there is that shrub clematis, I believe, whereas mine is 3 feet, his is probably 6. But yeah, he's got a lot of flowering vines that are really, really beautiful, and you'll see those pops of color working throughout this yard as well.
This guy here is Ligularia Speciosa, and as you can see, when it's in flower, this thing can be easily 8 feet high. It's got the nice tropical look, large leaves, likes a lot of moisture. Even if it has a lot of moisture during the daytime, sometimes if it's hot, the leaves will still wilt, but they rebound in the fall.
Look at how tall that Ligularia Speciosa is. That's just truly incredible. Like, it's taller than Bob. And I don't know how he gets these things so huge. I'm thinking because he just has packed so much in the yard. It really has truly created its own kind of microclimate environment. But I know he continuously adds sea soil to things, and he sort of mounds up dirt at the roots of all of his plants while he's got things perfectly edged. And I think there's something about that. Also, there's like the most incredible Veronica, pink Veronica there. A lot of people see them and they're, you know, just short. His, of course, is like triple the size of most you see. And also his collection of Martagon lilies and lilies. Beautiful, just beautiful.
And just directly above it, I've got my version of an eastern white pine, which I trained on a standard, because I thought, well, you know, in order to get more plants, being a collector of plants, the more that I can pack into a small space, the better. So I thought, well, you know, I'm going to trim this thing up, and
so I think he's pointed out some really, really good key sort of elements about design. How he's trained the pine on standards so that he can fit more into the yard. I think that's crazy smart. Also, I do appreciate the way he intermingles different colors. There's a lot of contrast happening here with the silvery blues coming from the spruce and the purples and the oranges. So there's just a real mix of color and of texture of trees and shrubs and perennials. And I think that's a really important characteristic to any good garden design as well. Bob's yard, incredible, inspiring. I like to think of it as this patchwork quilt that's just beautifully choreographed. It moves. It's just incredible, and I think there's just so much to learn from this video. You can walk away with creativity, inspiration, and knowledge all about gardening. So definitely worth a watch or two.